is. And so, Glenn, if you want to come up, I've got a question for you. And I'm going to read the question that I gave him, and he's going to have 5 minutes. And then we're going to give him another 5 minutes to answer anything that you want to ask him. And remember, a good question is not something that you editorialize. It's a question. And so let's keep that in mind. And so first off, Mr. Gaither, right? Gaither?
Yes.
Okay. What time is Zodiac party?
Aries.
Okay, well, we're North County. We're a little woo-woo up here. You just had a birthday? Yeah. So the question that I gave Mr. Gaither is, please explain what a citizen-controlled government is, and why do you feel we are not citizen-controlled now? How will you remain in earshot of your constituents? How will he stay in earshot? How will he be listening? What does he plan on doing to make sure that you are hearing from him? So that's the question.
Everybody, I'm Glenn Gaither. Here in New Haven. The answer to your question is no. I don't think that our state government is listening. I think they have an agenda, and they want as little input from us as possible. We look at something that just recently passed that's going to negatively impact the coast, which is the Habitat Conservation Plan. That's 50% of timber production for 70 years. That's also going to cost us a lot of jobs and a lot of tax revenues, which will just make the coast that much poorer. If you're paying attention to what's going on out in the communities, everything's skyrocketing price-wise. Food's up 22%. You know, transportation's up 27%. People are really struggling to make ends meet, and they're not quite getting there. I see a lot of kids in their 20s and 30s that are having families, and they're not buying homes. They can't afford the home. And in a lot of cases, they can't even afford rent. You know, we have a rent system set up for the underprivileged that stops at a $2,800 a month salary, right? So if you make more than that, you don't qualify for low-income housing. But to get into the cheapest one-bedroom or studio apartment at $1,500, you better be making $4,500 a month in order to qualify standard means to get in there. Tillamook County, I think the average for like a family of 4 rent for a home was $2,678. You have to make right around $8,000 a month. Not a lot of kids out there making those kind of wages right now, but all families supporting wages. The state knew in advance this was going to have a devastating negative impact on our communities. It impacts law enforcement, it impacts fire, and it impacts our schools. So the only thing that they can do is look for a new revenue source, and you're all sitting here. They've discussed taking over property taxes. You know, at the state level, they don't want to, you know, go out. They can't go after lumber anymore. So now they're saying, well, what else is out there? Tourism. Well, in a down economy, tourism goes down. Back when they shut things down in 2019 for COVID, I was like concerned because I kept coming out saying, hey, these businesses can't survive with their doors shut. It just, they didn't listen, right? And so we lost a lot of those businesses in Seaside, small businesses. But in an economy where people have less money to spend, guess what? They're not going to be coming to something. What happens when the roads aren't there? So on to the next thing. You know, people are going to travel less to the coast. And those businesses are going to have to increase their prices because of the tax increases that they're going to get. I think we should still fight the EC. That's my personal opinion. There were other things that happened in the year. There was Bill HB 2002 with both Republicans and Democrats that were focused on what was right and fought against it. It's a bill that basically was set out there as a abortion protection. That's how you read it on the title. But in reality, it did a lot more than that. It extended abortion to any child of any age. It also offered gender-affirming care, surgeries, and all of this to be done without parental consent as long as 2 doctors agree to do it. So the parents no longer have authority over children. The state needs 2 doctors. I think that is a really bad bill that needs to be looked at and either fixed or completely We have an educational system that I believe is failing both parents and children. You know, and you go to these school board meetings and it's, you know, it's a pretty hostile environment. You know, some people want their kids to learn one thing and some people want their kids to learn something else. I believe that it's the parents who are always responsible for the child, so it should be the parents' right to raise their child in a manner that they deem, you know, responsible and morally correct. They leave that up to the parents. The state needs to be out of it, but they're not listening. And we have these windmills out there want to put offshore for electricity, generate power. These things are going to have negative consequences for our fisheries. And the fishing industry is already, you don't need more environmental hazards out there. I'm more concerned with the plastics in our water coming downstream than I am with things like climate change, because they're far more immediate. I don't believe that they're listening on a lot of things. When you have a government that looks at its citizens and it can obviously see that it's suffering, maybe not everybody in this room, but a lot of the younger generations are now really have a heavy burden on them, and they continue to push the same agenda, that means that they're not listening. I'm retired. I don't have a full-time job anymore. I retired out of corrections officer, worked in a maximum security facility in Sioux County for 16 years. Got a back case of pancreatic cancer, kicked that to the curb, and then community corrections for a while before I retired and came back home to Oregon. So Oregon's my home. I grew up here.
Let's open it up to see if anybody has a follow-up question.
So in your comments about schools, I wonder if you support the idea of school vouchers.
Well, school choice, school vouchers, which gives the power to the parents, right? We're not worried about supporting, I'm not worried about supporting the system. What I'm worried about right now is we get kids coming out of high school that are functionally illiterate. When I was working in the prison system, and I retired 2019, so like 5-6 years ago, I had guys that had high school diplomas that could not read a single word. They would come up with a sheet on the store order form, and you have to tell them, read out everything that was on the store order form so they could order it. But they graduated. And when you looked in their obits, they had a high school diploma because the state lowered the standard. They lowered it way down, and they kept pushing kids through so you could get graduation. They got those numbers up, and they failed a lot of kids in that process. I think literacy is a big issue in our country. Kids leave school, and there's no requirement for them to prove proficiency in reading, writing, and math. What kind of toolbox are we handing them to put them out there in the world in this economy? That's a disaster. I believe that parents should be making these choices with their kids to find the best educational opportunities for them. So I say, fund the kid, let the parents decide.
Anyone else?
Is that addressing school vouchers?
Yes, there's a thing out there called educational freedom. They're trying to get signatures on the ballot. So it would be on the ballot in November. They have until June 20th to get all their signatures in. Still fighting to do that. But basically what it does is it kind of assigns $12,500 to each kid. Right? So let's say the kid's got $12,500. And parents decide we're not going to keep them in a public school, we're going to stick them over here at a parochial school or a small private school for kids with special needs. Well, $7,600 of that money stays with that child and goes to that school. The rest of it goes to the public school, so that the public school still gets some funding. So if you got 5 kids with $12,500, all of a sudden one kid's in private school, they're getting an additional $4,700 added on to the amount of money that goes for fair education.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, Cyrus, you're up.
And,
Okay, Cyrus, sign of zodiac.
Pisces,
Okay.
married to a Cancer.
Oh, we all have our struggles.
The real
I know, no, I'm teasing. You know I'm teasing. You know I'm teasing. Okay, so the question that I had for Cyrus, and I want you to know it's easier to ask questions to incumbents than it is to the newcomers because they have a record, right? And so I'm asking Cyrus, which policy on the future agenda are you most excited to champion through the House in the next session? And can you please provide details about why it affects us here in North County and how?
You know, there are so many challenges. So when I got the question, I thought, oh my gosh, which one to pick? The North Coast is really unique. We've got a small community spread out from Tillamook to Clatsop and over to Clatsop. And every community kind of has their own little slider scale system of what at that current moment is really affecting them. But the one thing that's kind of general among all of them is housing. And we really saw this come into the limelight in 2019, although it had been there since I moved here in 2012, and that is just a complete lack of housing options. But when we started to recover from COVID, the thing I heard from my own personal experience as a dentist that's trying to recruit staff to work is where do we live? You know, I could get dentists or hygienists or assistants from the Willamette Valley who were interested, but the minute they started to look for a place to live, there was things that. That's because we lack a diverse ecosystem of housing options. Right? We don't have your basic affordable housing available, and we all the way up to the second homes, the mega mansions that we see on the coast. What we do seem to have a lot of are touristy type of short-term rentals, and then we have homes for workforce housing that are now starting to get out of reach of people who are in the workforce. And so, where are all of our other options? And last time in session, I said on the housing committee, this is an area that we really wanted to tackle, and the job is not done. Governor Kotek said she would set a goal for 36,000 new units every year. And then the next question was how to pay for it. They put hundreds of millions of dollars into that pot. A lot of that money is going to go to help subsidize the developers who are trying to build that affordable housing in all those different pockets. But it wasn't just a clear cut, okay, now we've got the money, we've got the developers, let's build. The next thing was all the red tape that it would be accumulated over the years. So things like urban growth boundaries. Can you expand? Oh, yes, you can expand them, but boy, is it hard. If you're a small county, you're trying to expand it. That book that the state gives you to work through to get to that point is massive and it's expensive. And on top of that, you've got lots of groups that don't want you to expand your urban growth boundary because of what will be the impact on the farms and the forests. So there's a lot of tug of war happening between all these different groups, but they all agree we need more housing. So what I'm excited about as we go into the future is we're going to continue to try to tackle how do we do this. And part of that conversation in the next 2 years is going to have to be infrastructure. Talk to anybody who's thinking about the housing problem, and they will tell you the first thing we need is water treatment facilities, we need sewer plants, we need to expand our electrical, and those are expensive projects. And I don't want to put Commissioner Scar on the spot, but we can ask her or any others, and they'll tell you it's like down in Tillamook, we cannot build a single unit on the east side of town until we spent $60 million on infrastructure to be able to connect in to make that possible. Well, where's the 60 million going to come from? We can't raise property since we don't want to raise property. We don't really want to. But the counties need money. They're starving. And with things like the HCP, which I agree, and all the industry agrees, we need a habitat conservation plan. They were all at the table. The version that we got, there's lots of disagreement about whether that was the best version that we should have advanced. That ship's kind of sailed. The feds are going to approve it. We have to live in this reality. But what's going to be the impact on timber costs? What's that going to do to county budgets? How's that going to affect our loggers and farmers and all the small businesses that support an important industry? So these are some big problems that we have coming, and I'm hoping as we go forward that I can continue to build a consensus. Members of the Housing Committee, we're going to have a coastal-only housing summit on the during legislative days in May, or the end of this month, where we're going to talk about the challenges facing the Oregon coast. And how do we tackle things like, well, we've got tsunami zones all up and down the coast, all the way into the hills that we can't build on because of the landslide danger. So we have cities that are like, I need houses, but I can't build them. I have nowhere that the state will let me build them. So we've got red tape to cut, we've got money to get. And that's kind of where I spend my days and nights thinking about how are we gonna solve that problem among everything else that, keeps up, like that position? Happy to answer some type of, but that's the challenge and the.
I thought that person knows about a 3.5 minute talk. Or is that a 2.5 minute? Anyway. Questions for Cyrus?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I've been wanting to ask this for a while. The organization that I volunteer with, we research government overreach from Washington DC. And we found hundreds of examples in COVID. You both mentioned COVID. What I'd like to know is, how do you feel about returning the power back to the states and the money from Washington DC and supporting an Article 5 convention of the states?
Good question. I think Article 5 for who is everyone, well, I'll just assume somebody in the room doesn't know what the Article 5 is, but it allows the states to call for a constitutional convention.
I can explain it. Let me be your point person. The second portion of Article 5 in the Constitution gives people the power to work with their legislators to call for a convention of the states to discuss term limits, cap fiscal spending, and reducing the size and power of Washington DC and returning it back to the states where the legislators can decide how our money is spent and not Washington DC.
That's a good
Thank
point.
you.
Yes.
So I think it's an important part of the Constitution. It was put in there for a reason. They wanted to make sure the states could check federal government. So if the people want to have a convention, I think we should. And we could discuss all sorts of things like requiring the federal government to balance their budget so they don't run up astronomical debts. We can discuss things like term limits, et cetera. So I think it's a great place to start. I don't know. I know there's a lot of interest in it. I don't know what's going to happen with that interest, whether we'll see that happen anytime soon. It's been a call for it, I think, since the 70s.
No, actually, 2013, we created Convention of States Action.
Well, action group, yeah. But I think
We've never had a convention called with the legislators. Congress has made 27 amendments to the Constitution. What we the people want, we want to make an amendment to address term limits, fiscal spending, and reduce the size of power. Do you support that?
I appreciate the conversation. I absolutely support the convention of states. Thank you for your question.
You're welcome. Thank
Anybody
you.
else?
This is
Please.
actually a question for both of the gentlemen who spoke. There's, they don't like the HCP, as currently passed. But the habitat is that from which we all live. And I wonder if you are aware of the extent to which Wall Street benefits from our timber sales as opposed to the actual.
Good question. So, well, answer the first part first. I love where we live. I love the environment that we live in. I live here because of the clean air, clean water, vibrant forests. And I think that the Department of Forestry has a huge task to manage those forests. I think they've done that. I think industry as well. We've trained our foresters to go out there and take good care of that environment. But both of those groups felt like we're exposed to a lot of liability here if we're not careful, or even if we are careful, if we accidentally disturb the habitat of a protected species, it opens the state and these private industries and counties to lawsuits. And nobody wanted that. We wanted some protection, and we wanted to be able to give the Department of Forestry and our foresters the tools they needed to work in that environment and to limit that liability. And so I'm for that. And to be clear, I don't not want an HCP. What I wanted after discussing this with county leaders and state leaders and industry experts and environmental groups like Wild Salmon, we'll be again with here soon, is how do we balance that? How do we make sure that we operate in the real world where we need to protect the interests of the habitat as well as the members of the community who depend on the responsible use of that habitat to make a living and raise their families, etc. And that's where the friction has been. Did we need to set aside 50%? If so, where's the science? And then to your second point, are we are we exploiting the environment to benefit groups that have no stake in our community? We all live on Wall Street. It is a huge conversation, and I will be honest with you, I didn't know anything about the habitat conservation plan until 22 months ago. Then it was like walking into a furnace trying to like learn like all you could, but like while drinking from the fire. So I swear every month, every time I had a meeting with Commissioner Starr just last week where I'm like light bulbs about the impact that's going to happen in a way I hadn't even thought about. So, but so to answer your question, I'm for the habitat, for protecting this, and I want to live in a place where I've got cleaner water, lots of fish to fish for, cows that produce good milk, etc. But I also want to balance that with some really big concerns, like what's the state's response for gutting the school budget? Well, how are we going to replace that and fix it? And
You're
what's
done.
the state's response? So these are huge questions to answer to, and I think it takes a lot of time and consensus building to get the right answer. And I'm not faulting ODF for wanting this. He just hasn't. Am I done?
You're done. You got your times
I'm
up.
a politician now.
I don't
I
know.
can't-
Are we getting-
Sorry.
Give Glenn an opportunity to kind of respond or?
All right.
Yeah, let's
Anyway,
give Glenn
thank
a
you
few
for the
minutes to just
opportunity. Am I
answer.
done?
But I mean, we would like you to stick around, and talk after, and listen to what everybody else, we won't be here for probably, I'm thinking the way this is looking, maybe another 40 minutes at the most. If you want to stick, if you want out, bye. Your choice. You know,
So I'll keep my response kind of short. I'm not saying that we get rid of an HCP, we have to have a habitat conservation plan, I'm just saying change it so that ecology and economy are both balanced out. I grew up in the state in the 60s and 70s, which puts me in my late 30s. But when we went to school there, we learned about logging, we did trips out to Wanna-Nell, my entire family been in the timber industry, they're all Nicholsons, now having gone out and spent all my time out in the woods as a kid, I can see the difference between the after effects of logging from back then and now. We made great improvements in leaps and bounds. I think the answer would be to continue improving our conservation efforts while at the same time, trying to maintain a level of harvest that benefits the community. And in reality, when you cut a tree down and you plant 4 more trees, those 4 growing trees absorb more carbon than a larger age tree. So I say we just need to change the habitat conservation policy so that it's balanced, fair.
thank you. Okay, we're not commenting. We didn't memorialize. Okay, we also have, Logan, who will be our Democratic, candidate and he is running unopposed. And he was unable to be with us tonight, but he did send me something and I'm going to read it. And hopefully my 6th grade reading class did me well. Okay, it was in Salt Lake.
What's his sign?
I don't know, damn it.
Yeah.
Darn it, okay. Yeah, it's quick. Oregon's motto translates to "She flies with her own wings." We are innovators, and I firmly believe that by listening to our own communities, we can solve many of the problems we face today.
What was the question?
He didn't get a question.
Oh, okay.
Because he didn't get a question, he just sent me this, okay, so no question. So and he's not running unopposed. Okay, so, as a Democrat, so Logan gets to speak, whatever. Well, once he's running against one of these other 2 guys, then we'll nail him to the wall. Okay. Let's see, where was I?
Yeah, I can interrupt with that. His birthday is October 31st, so.
Oh, he's a Scorpio. So am I. We all have our crosses again. Okay, through my service in the legislature for Netart's Water District, through my service, I've seen that we need dedicated representation in Salem. I've had the opportunity to invest in workforce housing and local optometry services, but without state investment, our communities are limited in our abilities to thrive. Current representation skipped out on votes and sponsored extreme bills that would expand clear cuts next to our drinking watersheds and restrict abortion access. These are not the actions of a serious legislator claiming to truly represent our home or our values. And I am energized to run again to protect our fundamental rights on water sources and to provide dedicated, consistent leadership. I can promise that that I will show up every day asking, how do we build bridges among legislators and community leaders? And what can I do to ensure that every resident can continue to call our coast home? So why do I care? Well, I grew up in a reformed mining town in Uniontown. I remember a big, giant pit carved into the mountainside that would fill to the brim with water so toxic that when it overflowed, the entire drinking supply would be taken out. The pit used to be a town, but now is a Superfund site. The water's so toxic, the government has to clean and pump out the water, not just to protect the town, but to protect the birds from even landing. It was the natural resource workers who stood up to out-of-state corporate polluters to protect our drinking water supply for the long term. It's this experience that created a guiding principle for me. We can live off the land and also not destroy it. We can work together as a community to improve our lot for the next generation. We have a lot of opportunity in Oregon and here on the coast, and that includes access to quality healthcare and water, an education system that actually invests in students and educators that prepare them, and most importantly, housing affordability. Rockaway Beach spent a full year trying to hire a firefighter because applicants could not find a home. Our retirees are unable to find care workers. The solution to the housing crisis starts with building more homes, because the only way prices come to earth is if we address our chronic housing shortage. Thank you. My educational background is in real estate property management, and I finance middle income housing through my economic development agency. I know that the only way to address this issue is through simple supply. I grew up here on the coast, went to Tillamook Bay Community College. Everyone from my great aunt to my parents continued to live here. I've personally spoken to thousands of neighbors, and by far the #1 topic on everyone's mind is housing. It furthers issues like homelessness and is vital to ensure we have the firefighters, teachers, nurses, police, and care workers we need to provide for our communities. But it's also challenging. How do we build more while preserving our natural beauty? Add multifamily while preserving property values? That's a question. We can work together as a community to improve our lot for the next generation. I'm Logan Lady. I'm running for state representative, and I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go to position 1, because that just makes sense. We do 1 and then 2. And so we pulled out of the hat numbers, and the first to speak and answer their question is going to be Mr. Jeff Spinks. And so come on up, Jeff.
Okay.
You must have had a traffic issue getting here.
Yeah, tourism's alive and well.
Even on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about pulling me up.
Okay, so sign of the zodiac.
Sub 311. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
What's your sign of the zodiac?
Depends on what year it is. It's either a Leo or a Virgo. August 23rd.
You're
a baby.
yeah. Well, depends on where the sun is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's
anyway, I can find that out for you. And I'd be happy to. Okay, so the question I gave him is, Jeff, reading through your campaign information, you have used the phrase, government should work for you. What made you decide that you wanted the job? What does that mean to you? And as residents, how will you be able to work for the whole county effectively?
Well, simply put, being a part of, well, first of all, my name is Jeff Spinks, only kind of position 1. And then to go into answer your question, just being involved in government on the fringe, going to different things in Salem and stuff like that. I have the perception, and I think a lot of you do too, and probably some reality to it, that
I feel like we're taking our orders from the top down instead of the bottom up. You know, the federal government gets cranky at state for whatever they're doing or not doing, so they're gonna withhold, school funding, or they're gonna withhold funding for roads and highways, or this kind of funding, or that kind of funding. I think that fundamentally is, should be wrong. I kind of believe that, government is a ground up, process. We are electing people to go do a job that we don't have time to do. And from my perspective, over the years, I really believed in the people that I hired to do the job, were doing the job, only to find out they're not doing the job. So now I have to babysit the people that I hired to do the job. And if I got to babysit them, I might as well become one of the people. So that has probably been my path and process over the years. And some people approached me back in January to deep into this, and I did. So it's been a challenge. My life has been basically thrown upside down since January 19th. So it's tough to campaign, and it's tough to get the word out, and then work a full-time job as well. That's why I was a little bit tardy tonight. But I'm kind of a grassroots guy, bottom up. I work for you. If you elect me, I will be representing you. I do believe in the Constitution, Oregon laws and stuff like that. So I will be following laws and processes. But if there's something wrong or broken, I will be also a voice that will say no. I don't have a problem saying I've been in the car business for 40 years. A lot of people love me. Some people don't like me because they say no. What was the other part of the question?
How are you going to stay connected with the constituents and work for the whole county?
Basically, what I do on a day-to-day basis, I like to talk to people, and I like to meet people, and I deal with people on all different levels of society. I don't care if you're retired, owner of a business, working for a business, employed, unemployed. I talk to people. It's what I do. It's what I do every day. I meet all kinds of people. Basically, I guess communication skills or negotiating skills or whatever you want to say has come from the car business again in 40 years. I've met people from all walks of life, from the guy that, is down on his luck that needs help to the person that, runs a multi-million-dollar corporation. I don't have a dog in the fight as far as county commissioner is concerned. I don't have any personal interest of why I'm here fighting and working. I don't have, STRs are a big thing. Homeless is a big thing. I don't have a dog in the fight. I believe that as a county, we need to kind of work together and mend bridges, build bridges. I feel I'm more of a bridge builder than a dissenting kind of person. So, it's just basically going to meetings, talking to people, meeting people where they're at, whether it be at coffee, in their office, they come see me, it doesn't matter. So I guess talking to
Anybody got a follow-up question?
I'm just wondering if you find a full-time job.
I've already talked to the owner about that, and depending on what happens, May 21st will be a transition period. So I don't see how I could. I would like to. I will stay on probably as some kind of a, help if they need help, because just basically the labor situation in the county, it's hard to find people. I've been looking for sales people for years now. They get worse and worse and worse. So.
4 full years.
Pardon me?
It's 4 full years.
Yes, I know. I understand that. So I will be, looking to represent the county full time. But as far as working part time, I just don't see how it could fit that lifestyle because, Aaron, they go to lots of committees, a lot of board meetings, liaison, a lot of committees and stuff like that. So I have a busy day. But, I do love where I work and don't want to abandon the goal that there'll be a transition period from the 21st till January. So.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that you didn't have a write-up in the informational template.
Yes, I did not.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm not.
No, I couldn't.
But I haven't gotten any specifics from you at the
Okay.
moment on what direction. I mean, you don't have a dog in the fight, you know what the fights are about.
Yes, I do.
Which areas are most concerning?
Basically, responsibility as far as budgeting and fiscal responsibility. I look at running the county like running a business. I watch my nickels and dimes, make sure things are paid for and we're not always, chasing money. We do have to have revenue streams, taxes, TLT taxes is an area that's being talked about. I got it on my thing there, and I can't remember right now. So that is important. I have a 10-year background in law enforcement. I spent 10 years in Marion County Sheriff's Office as a reserve deputy. So I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. I really believe that, we need to kind of get back to blue, I guess is the best answer you can say there. So infrastructure, that's another thing that we're looking for. I kind of believe in, like Sarah said, real estate development. We need to be able to build our communities a little bit broader so we can bring people in that want to come and work on the coast that can live here. We have no place for people to live. I mean, even in our business, the dealership, bringing in a technician from the outside area that has the skill set that we need, and we can pay them. We've got no place to put them. So, housing is important. So those are some of the things that are important to me. Is I guess the best way is I want to bring this county back to fruition to where it was 30 some odd years ago when I came to the county. It was flush, and it was solid, and it was good. And it seems to be we've declined, we've become more and more broke. I want to kind of get that cycle turned around.
Anybody else?
So what is your stand on?
HCP. Personally, I think that we should have a little pushback. Sarah said a lot of that if we violate it, there's a lot of lawsuits and stuff, and I'm not big on fighting with lawsuits. But it's fundamentally broken. I mean, we have a hard enough time planning 5 years in the future, let alone 7. So I think in the next session, they're talking about going back. I've talked to Stimson, and they're talking about going back and kind of pushing back to see if we can't reopen it and utilize some more. Well, I guess everybody's got their own science now. So utilize the science to kind of figure out a way to have a more balanced harvest plan, so to speak. So, try to get a little bit back more for us. I'm a firm believer that, because I'm big on resource management and a resource economy county, because that's what kind of created this county, and the tourism and stuff is kind of like the frosting on the cake. So how do we bring that back, and what we can do to be sustainable? Because I'm all in favor of clean water. I'm in favor of the farmers, and I'm also in favor of logging in a sustainable way. But when we start putting, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but we got to put people first. We got to put our lives first. I firmly believe that the science that they're using with the different species that are being protected is kind of foggy, I guess to say. So I'd like to look at that and go back to that and see if we can't redesign the plan. It's not going to.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff.
My time's up. That was me.
Yeah, I don't believe you. Aaron. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just catch you guys all off guard, but why not?
Why
Maybe
not?
just a titch uncomfortable.
Sure.
Not like you've never made me uncomfortable.
Oh, hell. Just kidding.
Sign of zodiac.
Capricorn,
Ooh, fiscally responsible.
feet on the ground.
That's
just one of
that's
those-
what my oldest says about being cat. Anyway, this is the question that I posed to Aaron. Looking forward to future budgets, if you were the ultimate decision maker, what are the top 3 expenditures or projects you would choose to fund? Your pet projects, what you really, really, really would want to do for Tillamook County. And if any of that affects North County, I'd like to know about that too.
Sure.
So, it was an interesting question and one I had to think about, because first I had to think about what does ultimate decision maker mean? Right? Does that mean that I am coming at this as if it is not a county at all, and I just get to do what I want? And I decided no, that was not the approach I wanted to take. So I really came back and said, what if there was only one commissioner and that commissioner was me? So that the rest of the rules still applied to me, and I didn't have the ability to just do anything I want. And really thought about it from there. And so the current system for how we choose our expenditures is the department heads make their budgets. Those budgets come to the treasurer, she puts them all together and presents them. We have a finance committee. So our budget committee has 3 lay people on it and currently 3 commissioners. So it would be 3 lay people and me, the one commissioner who can make all the decisions. So the department heads come, they talk about their budgets, we get a chance to ask all those questions, and then ultimately the budget committee does the deliberation. We make the decisions, decide how we're going to make it all work, right? But that committee is a really huge part of all of these decisions. It's not the sole commissioner's job. The commissioners do have control at the end when we go to pass the budget to make tweaks if they need to happen, we can do that. So I think for me, I looked at it and said, okay, so if there's just one of me instead of 3 commissioners, I'm going to be the final say. I really had to think about how would I design sustainable government? How would I make sure that we were meeting all of the requirements that come to us? Because we are, as a county, a subdivision of the state. So we have a lot of things we have to do because the state says so, and they're not our choices. So when I look at this as if I have to choose 3 things to fund, I'm going to first fund my mandated services. Because we don't have a choice. I have 5 pages here of a lovely document prepared actually by Commissioner Mark Labhart back in 2012, and it still stands as a document that we use and I use to look at to say what's a mandated service. Those are the key things we have to fund. So that's the first thing I'm going to fund is I'm going to dig into my mandated services, and I'm going to make sure that we have all of those funded. Okay, and those are a whole list of things, but they include your clerk, your assessor, community development, DA offices and staff, juvenile services, the jail, circuit court facilities, emergency management, surveyor, treasurer's department, HR department, your board of county commissioners, your information services. These are things you have to do. These are not choices that you get to make. So as we're looking at our budget now, and as we would look at our budget in the future, all of those have to be one of the first things that I fund. The second thing that I'm going to fund is going to be any debts and responsibilities the county already has taken on. Because we do have some debts. We borrowed money for the jail facility as a great example. We had to make some upkeep and repairs. We have debts there. I'm going to make sure those get paid. I'm going to make sure that the bonds that we have sold to the people get paid back. So that's the second thing, right? The sustainable government. I need to have my mandatory services. I need to have the debts that we already owe be paid. The third thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that our assets are cared for. That means things like our courthouse. It means our facilities, all of the facilities that our public works is housed in. It means any asset of the county. We need to have our eyes on that. We have to make sure that we are taking care of the assets that belong to the people, because that's what we are as government. Everything that we do is for the people. Things that we own are not owned by us. They're owned by the people, right? Debts that we owe, we don't owe those, the people owe those. We have a responsibility to make sure that we meet the requirements for the state, our mandated services, our debts that are out there, and that we take good care of the facilities and physical things that we have. Now, there's 2 different kinds of funding that we work with. We work with our general fund and we work with our special revenue funds. Our special revenue funds are funds that come in that can be used for only one thing, that thing for which you garnered them, right? So I know that special projects are important to me, but any special project that you're going to see me spend money on is going to be because I went and got that. So there is a lot of work being done around homelessness right now. And I think it's awesome. And you know what? That's $3 million that I brought in the last 3 years to do that work because it's important work, but it is not at the base of the county's responsibilities. And there's not enough money left once we do the 3 things that I've already mentioned to put our own money into homelessness. So then it's my job to go out and get that money because it is an issue in the community. It's one that people bring up often. Housing, another one. We can't use general fund for that. We don't have enough general fund to meet those 3 things and do housing. We have to identify other special revenue funds, which we have done. So we do have money that we put into housing as the county, It is not your general fund, it's not your tax dollars, it is coming from fees that we have charged on short-term rental operators. So we look at all of these things, there are passion projects, but before those come the three things we have to do, which is sustainable, responsible government.
Questions for Aaron from the audience? Wow, Aaron.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say,
There's someone like me that says, that you're coherent, there's social, issues are important.
Fair.
And I think I'm just gonna ride my Oxford, so Wall Street ownership,
Yeah.
landslides because clear cut too much, therefore we can't build some of this housing.
Sure.
Do you have, perspective on the way that timber functions?
Sure. I think it was Glenn that said economics and environment have to be balanced. And they do have to be balanced, because one of the things about being a county commissioner is I go back to those three things I said we have to pay for. At this point in time for our general fund, we are getting between 25 and 30% of that money from timber. So it is a part of who we are as a community, is a part of who we are financially, that we don't have a way to just say, time out, stop harvesting, we'll be okay, because we won't. We have a lot of work to do to get to a place where that might be possible. That said, I think a habitat conservation plan is absolutely necessary. I agree with everyone who's come before me and said that. I think the question that we had is there was a great body of work done by private industry and environmentalists together with the private forest board. They sat at that table and they talked it out, and they sat there and they talked and they talked and they talked until they came to something that neither of them was really that entirely happy with, but they all felt they could live with, right? That's good policy making. That is really saying, okay, everybody's going to have to give something so we can get to an environment and economy balance. What happened with the habitat conservation plan was no conversation was had. The Department of Forestry created a plan and moved it forward. And so the reason that we have struggled so much with that is we were not at the table. We don't know how they made their decisions. We don't know how we got to where we are. And so there's just a concern that we were left out of the dialogue, even though all those lands that they were talking about were originally state lands that were deeded to them. It was a tough conversation. It's a done conversation. So we now are expecting that to move forward at the federal level. We are now looking at how do we change the dialogue with the Department of Forestry? Because harvest is one of the 5 points of greatest permanent value, right? And greatest permanent value is where we need to be in our state forests. And that includes harvest, which is a part of it, but it also includes habitat for salmonids, habitat for other native species. It includes clean water and it includes recreation. So now we're in a changed conversation with the Department of Forestry. We are looking at a habitat conservation plan, whether we feel like maybe it could have been closer to the private forest accord, both in process and outcome. That might have been nice, but we're not there. In terms of Wall Street, we are so lucky in Tillamook County that we have 2 timber companies that are here that actually have mills in our communities. They donate to our schools. They're a part of it. There are 2 other companies that don't. They're the REITs that you talk about. So Novena, which is up here more, I believe, is a REIT, and Weyerhaeuser is a REIT. And that is a problem. So I have a personal story I could tell about that, about when I was at CARE trying to buy our office building, but it was owned in one of those REITs. And they just kept saying, we can't separate it out. We can't do that. It is an investment block. So I totally get what you're talking about. And up and down the coast and other parts throughout the state, it is an issue because decisions are being made to just cut and run. And that is not a strategy that we want in our communities, right? If we're going to do timber here, let's do it sustainably. There's a couple companies that are doing some work. I know there's one, I won't remember the name, but doing some other sustainable work. Did you have a question in the back? Yeah.
The first I heard about the jail and having to borrow money for jail, how much is that?
You know, that was borrowed long before I got here, but I know that it pays off in 2028. So we pay about $280,000 a year, I think, is that loan payment, and it pays off in 2028.
So it was a bond.
It was actually a loan that the county took out. It was not a bond. The county took out a loan to make repairs. So the jail was originally built, and then there were a myriad of issues that occurred because it was built in the 80s, I think. It's been there for a long time. So then there were some repairs that were needed. It was not actually a bond, it was a loan.
how does the loan get paid back? Where does that come?
Comes out of the general fund. Yeah, comes out of the general
So
fund.
when we see that on our tax, that's part of that amount? How
No,
much
because so what we get from you is you're gonna pay property taxes, and that's gonna come to us for general fund. And that's where we're gonna make that loan payment from. You have a lot of other things on your tax bill that are bonds and levies, et cetera, but the jail is not, this repair for the jail isn't one.
But the amount? You know, the total amount?
I don't know the total amount we borrowed. It was again done long before I got into the job. I just know currently how it impacts our budget because it's a payment we're making. I can find out for you if you'd like to know. That came before my time. Yeah, so before I leave tonight, let's make sure that I get your information and I'll check with our treasurer and I'll find out exactly what that was and when it happened, for how much and when it pays off.
Thank you, Erin.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Bruce, you're so excited, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Come on up.
Or maybe.
I worked for Bruce back 15 years ago, I think, for a year out at Happy Camp. Well, I actually worked for Bruce's wife. Bruce was living somewhere completely different, working somewhere. And so I worked for his wife, but it was Bruce is a Scorpio. I was a Scorpio. His wife is a Scorpio. Handyman was a Scorpio. I'm telling you, it was a little bit interesting. So anyway, with that all said, Bruce's question is, what is your experience in economic development and how does it relate to supporting small business and job growth in North Tillamook County? North Tillamook County. That's what that N meant.
So, my son here, Paul, so he's a product of two Scorpios. Gemini.
Oh.
He's a common sense side. Thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. We're kind of winding down for our campaigns, and so this is maybe the last time that candidates we're all going to get together for a while. This is a great question because I'm passionate about economic development. I know that we focus a lot on things, homelessness, and we focus on the budget. The budget's going to be a big issue. Big meeting tomorrow, budget committee we're just talking about. And so we focus a lot on that, but economic development is I think it's our way of moving forward as a county. We right now, and Paul graduated from Tillamook High School here, and he left. That's what's happening. A lot of our young people are leaving. They are coming back. I hope he does come back. Jury's out of that one. He does come back, but the other thing we have going on is that we have an older community here, and that's okay. People they want to live here. There's second homes, but it's kind of more focused on they have a kind of a different need than younger people striving for the economic development side. What do I want to say now? So for economic development, there's basically three areas in the natural resource industry, right? Economic development. We got dairy, forest, and fishing. Those are all important, and we need to. Big focus of mine is going to be to let's keep working on those and trying to develop some value added products, things like that, those industries. The other issue or the other leg of the stool is tourism. Now, that's where I came from, and I spent 24 years. Never talked about it. 24 years we operated a business on Happy Camp in the yards, and so it's been a successful business. It's a small business. And so I understand how small businesses operate. I understand how we need to work with other people, other groups, and be good members of the community. I think we've done that. So I want to segue to tourism now. And it's kind of interesting that we have a revenue issue here in our county. We can't just magically kind of create more dollars to help pay for the increased expenses in our budgets. In Tillamook County, it's $101 million is the value of tourism, travel tourism to the county. You go to the north of Classic County, instead of $101 million, it's $286 million. You go to the south of Lincoln County, it's about $260 million. Now, you think about it, why are we so less than the rest? Well, there's some reasons for that. People do come here, we know that. They love this environment here. They come here, they go to the Tillamook Creamery, #1 tourist destination, I think, in the state, at least has been. But they don't stay here. And I think we're missing a really big opportunity with the tourism side of things. We need to find more places, more lodging. We need to also look at and develop more kind of ecotourism kinds of activities. People will come here. We are, again, within 2 hours of about 3 million people. And they found us during COVID and it caused some problems. But we need to look at sustainable tourism. We need to look at, clearly, we're peaking out in the summertime. We're kind of maxing out and there's no more room. There's no more places for tourism effectively. I think there is actually, but we need to look at how do we fill those shoulder periods so we don't have this big influx of people in the summertime. One of the things that we've talked about is short-term rentals, and I was on a committee that worked on that and came up with a plan. I think the plan was a good plan in sorts, and it wasn't a good plan in other areas. We put a cap on all short-term rentals throughout the county, and I think that needs to be relooked at because again, is what we want to try to do is bring in tourism, tourist dollars that we can capture here as they migrate through our area.
Does anybody have a question for Bruce?
Okay.
Okay.
So I came here about 20 years ago and, as a small community, our government, more than I want to state department. And one of the factions that was called council, and the things that we talk about particularly is most short-term rentals, tourism, so on.
Right.
So what do you know about the council and how it operates in the county and how the county commission?
Is there one? I mean, I say that kind of facetiously or jokingly. I don't see any focus by the county commission on economic development. I mean, it's at least as much focus as I think there should be. There should be a balance on this, and I think it's our way to move this county forward. We've got a lot of good bones here. I know we have issues with infrastructure, with workforce housing, with workforce training, but I think we need to focus on those. But I think really I think economic development is trying to recruit some businesses to come in here. They can be small businesses. Try to make sure that our small businesses that we have here work and function. Is government really helping those businesses operate?
So have you tapped into what is happening? County?
I have. I've seen there's a group that we're involved in with which I know I think Aaron's on that. It's the Columbia PAC or Columbia
Pacific Economic Development District.
Right.
Capital PAC.
And so that's a group of three counties, actually 4 counties, part of Washington County. I've read the reports. It's got a good outline. I don't know where it's at. It's something we just need to pursue. It's interesting in that group. I didn't even see dairy even mentioned in that. That's one of our #1 industries here. And so I'm not sure. I'm more centrist in terms of I think that we need to develop get together the business leaders, community leaders, with business leaders essentially mainly, and have them work together and let's work together and develop a plan, get it funded.
From previous forums that I've heard, that we are in favor of 5 commissioners for the county and a business manager. Can you expand on that?
Sure. Clatsop County has a 5-commissioner system up there, so does Washington County. I think that right now, I mean, right now, our commissioners are not, they don't represent a specific district, they're not elected from a specific district, I think it should be. And I would like to move to that model of 5, and also then, I think the pay level, a lot of discussion on pay here, but the pay level ought to be reduced quite a bit. I don't know if they should be full-time jobs, in Washington, Classic County, they're not. But what they do is, at money savings, they use and hire a professional administrator. Now, again, it doesn't relinquish the role of the county commissioners. They basically still set policy, they hire the administrator, they help set the budget, they monitor the budget, so they have a real hands-on role. It's just really similar to our special districts that we have in Tillamook County.
How do you change that?
How do you change that? Well, that would probably be a 4-year effort. That's why you need me in this office. 4 years. But actually, it'd be a vote of the people. And obviously, the way to change that is there's a lot of development work that's necessary. And once it's formulated, we take it out to the public and see what the public wants to do.
So it would come from the commissioners themselves?
Would it come from the commissioners themselves? It could, or it could be a citizen's initiative. If the commissioners aren't so inclined, if I'm one of the commissioners and the other 2 are not inclined, then it's not gonna go anyplace. Then I would go through for a citizen's initiative.
Did I see another hand? Back in the back?
Yeah, but going back to the SDR, you were a member of
Right.
the group that put together the 84 and supported it at the time. You've since come out and today you said you have an issue with the cap.
Right.
And at the Oceanside version of this, you said your ideas were still formulating, kind of working on it. Sounds like time's up, right? Have you figured out what your stand is?
Oh, sure. I know what I'm saying. Basically, there's good things that the SDR committee did. The main focus is livability for the people that, that live in those areas. And so, so we did those. We looked at noise, we looked at occupancy, we looked at parking, all of those kind of visible things. Then we kind of went farther than that. We went into saying, well, instead of just being a right that somebody has, they need to get a permit to be able to have a shelter. And then we even said, let's put caps on this. The cap, I'm supportive of 84, ordinance 84 relative to those key issues. I'm not supportive based on the caps. We have about 2,000 homes that could become short-term rentals. I'm not saying they will, probably won't. Affect their. I'm concerned about that. I'd like to do this.
All right. So now we're going to head to position 2. And we have Paul Fournier and Darcy Jones. And I'm really sorry to say that Paul is not here tonight. His father took ill yesterday afternoon and he jumped on an airplane and is somewhere between here and Boston.
No, he's actually in Boston.
Is he? Okay.
I did get a text from him, but he was just landing, so he said he wasn't going to be able,
Yeah,
he
so-
thought he might be able to zoom in.
Very
but-
last minute. So we will give Mr. Darcy Jones his question and then ask him some questions. And then, if you guys would like to speak with the people here in the room, we have the room for at least another hour. So please feel free. I wish there was snacks, but I'm not snacking anymore, not or less. And, before I ask you your question, okay, I'm gonna do a little campaigning for myself. I have a tip jar in the back there that I packed around with me for the 20-something years I was in the food beverage industry. And right now, what my wish, because being the manager of the farmer's market in Manzanita, and not in our budget, is a brand new tent with our logo on it. So if anybody should feel the desire to put some money in that jar back there, or let me know, I would be so excited. So I'm just throwing that out there. You know, girls got a wish, right? Yeah,
Work in the farmer's market.
yeah. Laura's our newest board member. So, So anyway, thank you, Mr. Jones, for being here. And he got here early, so he's like ready to go home. I understand that your wife passed recently, and I'm so sorry to hear about that. So you being here is big.
Maybe position number 2 is cursed.
It could be, yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
So my question to
What
you.
about his sign?
Oh, what was sign in the zodiac?
And an Aries.
He's an Aries, okay. That's interesting. Okay, so, your question that I gave you is, what do you believe is the most urgent issues affecting North Tillamook County residents? And how can the county commissioners play a role in addressing?
Well, I'm sure the issues in North County are a lot. And I really think the most important issues that commissioners can actually put some effort into and actually is economic development and growth, so that we generate a little more revenue in the county, so that we can generate some more funds for our roads and our sheriff. Currently, I went to the budget committee meeting, kind of watched some preliminary things, and this county has a $4.3 million deficit this year. They have to balance out, and I think Aaron Scar pretty well pointed out a lot of the money the county has already, of course, dedicated to certain funds, have to be spent with that. There's pretty well leaves nothing in the general fund. There just isn't enough money in the general fund to do everything that needs to be done. And so we need to bolster that. And this habitat conservation plan is sliding us off over the hill. We're going to get pretty good revenue next 2 years, and it's pretty much so more. And the other big issue is inflation. The county can only raise property tax values by percent according to law. Inflation is running like 7 to 10%. I see things that are so, do the math. As years go by, we're just, and it's getting down to full. So I'm making that sound pretty bleak, aren't I? But with that being said, we need to promote more business, and we promote more buildings so that we have some lower income housing. And we really need to rebuild our Department of Community Development. In its current form, it is not, it's just not doable. They're just totally going to have to totally rebuild that so we can be able to actually build that. But with that being said, another big thing I see, well, especially in Manson, is short-term rentals are conflict. Actually, the best. A person buys a house for a second home, they should have the right to rent it out. That's all fine and dandy. On the other side of the coin, you have corporations and people who are making a living who are buying blocks of houses and in the middle of a residential, and then the next thing you know, in the middle of a residential neighborhood, it's a 40 or 50 unit hotel all in one place. I how did that come about? That, you know, that's a real concern with some of you. But, I don't really think we can cap on it, because I think, you know, people do have the right to use their property. Makes it also kind of the bottom line. Speaking of the county being broke and needing the money, maybe I shouldn't get so specific, but right now today, there's a campground that's attempting to build in Tierra Del Mar, and that is 100% DLT funds, which the county desperately needs. It's went through planning and zoning, all of the arguments for approximately 3 years, maybe more. And then here, just arbitrarily, Department of Community Development decided it wasn't a good project, threw every roadblock they could in front of it, and then basically shut it down. And that's money that the county needs. You can figure out how to make it happen. Shut it down.
Does anybody else have a question? Any questions? Well, you guys, we did it at 7:15, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate all of you guys, everybody's time here, and I'm hoping that you learned something tonight that you're going to take with you when you've got that ballot in front of you. I want you to understand how privileged you are to be able to have that ballot in front of you, because I'm about to turn 60.
Late 30s.
Late, oh, I lie up. I'm gonna be 70 and I've never had a ballot in front of me. And so take that.
Well, mine.
That's illegal.
Oh, right. Sorry.
That's against the law. I can't do that. I can't own a gun and I can't vote. But I can drive anybody that needs a ride to get a ballot, to whatever it takes. And that's how I've always been. And so, what were you gonna say, Bruce?
I'm saying, thank you, Kendra.
Oh,
Laura,
thank
for
you.
doing this.
Asked before too about some questions and stuff. So the Pioneer has done their questions for the candidates. I realize that usually I grab them all and put them into one document for everybody to make it handy, because we parsed them out over several weeks here. So I will be posting, probably not tonight, but tomorrow, I will grab all of the different questions for the candidates. So you'll essentially have a Pioneer voter's guide. So if you go to the Pioneer, you'll be able to look at all of their questions, all of their answers to the other questions that have been asked as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
drive home safe. I'm a Canadian. Oh, shit, I don't have time for all that. Since I was 8.